The Whirligig of Life by O. Henry. Justice of the Peace Benajah Widdop sat in the door of his office smoking his elder stem pipe. Halfway to the zenith, the Cumberland Range rose blue-gray in the afternoon haze. A speckled hen swaggered down the main street of the settlement, cackling foolishly. Up the road came a sound of creaking axles, and then a slow cloud of dust, and then a bull cart bearing Rancy Bilbro and his wife. The cart stopped at the justice's door, and the two climbed down. Rancy was a narrow 6 feet of sallow brown skin and yellow hair. The imperturbability of the mountains hung upon him like a suit of armor. The woman was calicoed, angled, snuff-brushed, and weary with unknown desires. Through it all gleamed a faint protest of cheated youth unconscious of its loss. The justice of the peace slipped his feet into his shoes, for the sake of dignity, and moved to let them enter. "We all," said the woman in a voice like the wind blowing through pine boughs, "wants a divorce." She looked at Rancy to see if he noticed any flaw or ambiguity or evasion or partiality or self-partisanship in her statement of their business. "A divorce," repeated Rancy with a solemn nod. "We all can't get along together nohow. It's lonesome enough for to live in the mountains when a man and a woman cures for one another, but when she's a-spittin' like a wild cat or a-sullenin' like a hoot owl in the cabin, a man ain't got no call to live with her." "When he's a no-count varmint," said the woman, without any especial warmth, "a-traipsin' along a-scallywags and moonshiners, and a-layin' on his back pizen and quothing o' whiskey, and a-pesterin' folks with a pack o' hungry, triflin' hounds to feed. When she keeps a-throwin' skillet lids," came Rancy's antiphony, "and slings bottom water on the best coon dog in the Cumberlands, and sets herself agin cookin' a man victuals, and keeps him awake o' nights accusin' him of a sight o' doin's, when he's always fightin' the revenues and gets a hard name in the mountains for a mean man, who's going to be able for to sleep at nights?" The justice of the peace stirred deliberately to his duties. He placed his one chair and a wooden stool for his petitioners. He opened his book of statutes on the table and scanned the index. Presently he wiped his spectacles and shifted his inkstand. "The law and the statutes," said he, "are silent on the subject of divorce as far as the jurisdiction of this court are concerned. But according to equity and the Constitution and the Golden Rule, it's a bad bargain that can't run both ways. If a justice of the peace can marry a couple, it's plain that he is bound to be able to divorce 'em. This here office will issue a decree of divorce and abide by the decision of the Supreme Court to hold it good." Rancy Bilbro drew a small tobacco bag from his trousers pocket. Out of this he shook upon the table a $5 note. "Sold a bar skin and 2 foxes for that," he remarked. "It's all the money we got." "The regular price of a divorce in this court," said the justice, "are $5. He stuffed the bill into the pocket of his homespun vest with a deceptive air of indifference. With much bodily toil and mental travail he wrote the decree upon half a sheet of foolscap, then copied it upon the other. Rancy Bilbro and his wife listened to his reading of the document that was to give them freedom. "Know all men, by these presents, that Rancy Bilbro and his wife Ariella Bilbro this day personally appeared before me, and promises that hereinafter they will neither love, honor, nor obey each other, neither for better nor worse, being of sound mind and body, and accept summons for divorce according to the peace and dignity of the state. Herein fail not, so help you God. Benajah Widdop, Justice of the Peace in and for the County of Piedmont, State of Tennessee." The justice was about to hand one of the documents to Rancy. The voice of Ariella delayed the transfer. Both men looked at her. Their dull masculinity was confronted by something sudden and unexpected in the woman. "Judge, don't you give him that 'ere paper yit. 'Tain't all settled nohow. I got to have my rights first. I got to have my alimony. 'Tain't no kind o' way to do for a man to divorce his wife 'thout her having a cent fur to go with. I'm a-layin' off to be goin' up to Brother Ed's up on Hogback Mountain. I'm bound for to have a pair of shoes and some snuff and things besides. If Rance can't afford divorce, let him pay me alimony. Rancy Bilbro was stricken to dumb perplexity. There had been no previous hint of alimony. Women were always bringing up startling and unlooked-for issues. Justice Benadja Widdop felt that the point demanded judicial decision. The authorities were also silent on the subject of alimony. But the woman's feet were bare, and the trail to Hogback Mountain was steep and flinty. "Ariella Bilbro," he asked in official tones, "how much did you allow would be good and sufficient alimony for the case before the court?" "I allowed," she answered, "for the shoes and all, to say $5. That ain't much for alimony, but I reckon it'll get me up to Brother Ed's." "The amount," said the justice, "are not unreasonable. Rancy Bilbro, you are ordered by the court to pay the plaintiff the sum of $5 before the decree of divorce air issued." "I ain't no more money," breathed Rancy heavily. "I done paid you all I had." "Otherwise," said the justice, looking severely over his spectacles, "you are in contempt of court." "I reckon if you give me till tomorrow," pleaded the husband, "I might be able to rake or scrape it up somewheres. I never looked for to be paying no alimony." "The case are adjourned," said Benadja Widdop, "till tomorrow, when you all will present yourselves and obey the order of the court, following of which the decrees of divorce will be delivered." He sat down in the door and began to loosen a shoestring. "Might as well go down to Uncle Zia's," decided Rancy, "and spend the night." He climbed into the cart on one side, and Ariella climbed in on the other. Obeying the flap of his rope, the little red bull slowly came around on a tack, and the cart crawled away in the nimbus arising from its wheels. Justice of the Peace Benadja Widdop smoked his elder stem pipe. Late in the afternoon he got his weekly paper and read it until the twilight dimmed its lines. Then he lit the tallow candle on his table and read until the moon rose, marking the time for supper. He lived in the double-log cabin on the slope, near the girdled poplar. Going home to supper, he crossed a little branch darkened by a laurel thicket. The dark figure of a man stepped from the laurels and pointed a rifle at his breast. His hat was pulled low, and something covered most of his face. "I want your money," said the figure. "Without any talk. I'm getting nervous, and my fingers are wobbling on this here trigger." I've only got $5, said the justice, producing it from his vest pocket. "Roll it up," came the order, "and stick it in the end of this here gun barrel." The bill was crisp and new. Even fingers that were clumsy and trembling found little difficulty in making a spill of it and inserting it, this with less ease, into the muzzle of the rifle. "Now I reckon you can be going along," said the robber. The justice lingered not on his way. The next day came the little red bull, drawing the cart to the office door. Justice Benadja Widdop had his shoes on, for he was expecting the visit. In his presence, Rancy Bilbro handed to his wife a $5 bill. The official's eye sharply viewed it. It seemed to curl up as though it had been rolled and inserted into the end of a gun barrel. But the justice refrained from comment. It is true that other bills might be inclined to curl. He handed each one a decree of divorce. Each stood awkwardly silent, slowly folding the guarantee of freedom. The woman cast a shy glance full of constraint at Rancy. "I reckon you'll be going back up to the cabin," she said, "along with the bull cart. There's bread in the tin box sitting on the shelf. I put the bacon in the boiling pot to keep the hounds from getting it. Don't want to forget to wind the clock tonight." "You are going to your brother Ed's?" asked Rancy, with fine unconcern. "I was allowing to get along up there for night. I ain't saying as they'll pester themselves any to make me welcome, but I ain't nowhere else fur to go. It's a right smart ways, and I reckon I'd better be going. I'll be a-saying goodbye, Rance, that is, if you care fur to say so." "I don't know as anybody's a hound dog," said Rancy in a martyr's voice, "for to not want to say goodbye, lest you are so anxious to get away that you don't want me to say it." Ariella was silent. She folded the $5 bill and her decree carefully and placed them in the bosom of her dress. Benadja Widdop watched the money disappear with mournful eyes behind his spectacles. And then with his next words he achieved rank, as his thoughts ran, with either the great crowd of the world's sympathizers or the little crowd of its great financiers. "Be kind of lonesome in the old cabin tonight, Rancy," Ariella said. Rancy Bilbro stared out at the Cumberlands, clear blue now in the sunlight. He did not look at Ariella. "I allow it might be lonesome," he said, "but when folks gets mad and wants a divorce, you can't make folks stay." "There's others wanted a divorce," said Ariella, speaking to the wooden stool. "Besides, nobody don't want nobody to stay." "Nobody never said they didn't." "Nobody never said they did, either. I reckon I better start on now to Brother Ed's." "Nobody can't wind that old clock." "You want me to go along with you in the cart and wind it for you, Rance?" The mountaineer's countenance was proof against emotion, but he reached out a big hand and enclosed Ariella's thin brown one. Her soul peeped out once through her impassive face, hallowing it. "Them hounds shan't pester you no more," said Rancy. "I reckon I've been mean and low down. You wind that clock, Ariella." "My heart's hittin' that cabin, Rance," she whispered. "Along with you. I ain't a-goin' to get mad no more. Let's be startin', Rance, so we can get home by sundown." Justice of the Peace Benadja Widdop interposed as they started for the door, forgetting his presence. "In the name of the state of Tennessee," he said, "I forbid you all to be a-defiant of its laws and statutes. This court is more than willin' and full of joy to see the clouds of discord and misunderstanding rollin' away from two lovin' hearts, but it is the duty of the court to preserve the morals and the integrity of the state. The court reminds you that you are no longer man and wife, but are divorced by regular decree, and as such are not entitled to the benefits and pertinences of the matrimonial state." Ariella caught Rancy's arm. Did these words mean that she must lose him now when they had just learned the lesson of life? "But the court are prepared," went on the justice, "for to remove the disabilities set up by the decree of divorce. The court are on hand to perform the solemn ceremony of marriage, thus fixing things up and enabling the parties in the case to resume the honorable and elevating state of matrimony which they desires. The fee for performing said ceremony will be in this case, to wit, $5. Ariella caught the gleam of promise in the words. Swiftly her hand went to her bosom. Freely as an alighting dove the bill fluttered to the justice's table. Her sallow cheek colored as she stood hand in hand with Rancy and listened to the reuniting words. Rancy helped her into the cart and climbed in beside her. The little red bull turned once more, and they set out, hand-clasped, for the mountains. Justice of the Peace Benadja Widdop sat in his door and took off his shoes. Once again he fingered the bill tucked down in his vest pocket. Once again he smoked his elder stem pipe. Once again the speckled hen swaggered down the main street of the settlement, cackling foolishly.